Welcome, everybody. This is Michael McAvoy. Glad that you're here today. This is the free webinar Identifying Gut and Neurotransmitter Imbalances with Urinary Organic Acids Testing. So glad that you're with us today. We've got a ton of material to cover, and I'd like to welcome everybody. I love doing these webinars. I give away a lot of free information, a ton of free information. So if you've not been here before, welcome. If you have, welcome back. Please take notes. I talk very quickly. And as I mentioned, I disseminate a lot of information, so definitely hope you get a lot to take away from this webinar today. So just a little reminder about who I am and what we do. My name is Michael McAvoy. I'm the founder and CEO of Metabolic Healing, and we are an online, entirely web-based nutritional consulting slash functional medicine oriented type of company, and I have a couple of amazing partners that work with me. My clinical partner, Julie Donaldson, is the head nutritional consultant at Metabolic Healing, and my technical partner, Aidan Newman, is the marketing director. So we teach clinicians just like you the skills that we have acquired and use in practice. And as you can imagine, the 21st century is filled, it's literally inundated with clinical concerns of kinds that we didn't see previously. And that's because clinical practice is becoming more and more advanced, more and more tests are being utilized, different kinds of conditions are being seen and are being identified. So we have to really be on top of our game to really understand what we're up against and what we have to do in order to meet the demands of clinical practice today. And that includes really getting familiar with the use of some different kinds of lab tests and some more elaborate kinds of lab tests. And so, of course, this webinar today is on organic acids testing. So I'm glad that you're here. And it's very clear to me that the standard of care type of testing that's being used today is totally inadequate to meet the real world demands of clinical practice. As the incidences of challenging health conditions continues to rise, the skills that are required to implement and analyze functional lab testing is now the rule of clinical practice and not the exception. The urinary organic acids test has now emerged as one of the single most powerful testing tools that clinicians can utilize for the purpose of identifying root causative factors and for constructing protocols for optimal clinical success. So today I'm going to share with you a number of these in-depth observations that I've made in my practice through the use of organic acids testing. Before I do that, I'd like to remind everybody to stick around until the end of this broadcast. We're going to be doing a question and answer at the end of this webinar, and to one lucky winner, I'm going to be raffling off a free iPad Air 2. So in order to qualify for this free iPad, you have to stick around to the end of this broadcast. So let's jump right into this material. I know a lot of you are really anxious about doing this, and for good reason. The organic acids test is a phenomenal test, and I've been using the OAT test in my practice for many years, and I've literally used the major tests that are on the market, and I've found, well, which ones are the best, which ones have strengths and weaknesses, and what can I really do clinically speaking when I utilize this test. So it's a test that you can use with basically any kind of a client or patient, but it can shed light on a number of physiological imbalances, and that's one of the main strengths of the OAT test, is essentially you're able to look at the activities of gut and microbial activity imbalance, as well as neurotransmitter imbalances, mitochondrial function, various nutrient deficiencies, detoxification pathways, including the glutathione pathway, energy production is reflected in the Krebs cycle metabolites. So there's an overwhelming amount of information, and that's kind of one of the main things that clinicians are kind of afraid of when running the OAT test. But don't be afraid of it. I'm going to teach you how to interpret and utilize the results of this test so that you can truly gain in your practice from using it, and your clients can as well. There's three main labs that I've really looked at and gone in depth with in terms of OAT testing: the Genova Diagnostics panel, and then the Great Plains Organic Acid Test in the U.S. Biotech. I am pretty much convinced right now that the Great Plains Organic Acids Test is the best one to look at. They have the most analytes, and especially for gastrointestinal markers and yeast markers and clostridial markers, Great Plains wins out hands down, in my opinion. So it's one of the top troubleshooting tests. We're going to get into this stuff today. As I mentioned, there's a number of different conditions and symptoms that can be associated with neurotransmitter imbalances and gut imbalances. This is obviously just a very short list. In your clinical practice, I'm curious about what you're seeing and what kinds of clients and patients you're working with that could benefit from using the organic acids test. So, routinely working with clients who have mold toxicity, Lyme disease, acute and chronic gastrointestinal symptoms, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, the organic acids test is extremely useful for all of these and more. Today we're going to be looking at 4 sections of the organic acids test that are highly relevant with respect to neurotransmitters in the brain as well as with gastrointestinal markers. So the yeast markers, the oxalate markers, which are often found with the yeast markers. We're going to also look at clostridial markers and neurotransmitter metabolites. Okay, so first, let's go ahead and jump right into this. Let's look at the yeast metabolites. So first of all, let's talk about yeast, fungus, and mycotoxins. Intestinal microbial imbalances can lead to the proliferation of yeasts, such as Candida, but there's actually many other kinds of yeasts that could arise in a person's body. We have to appreciate the role of environmental, chemical, and heavy metal toxins on the body, and how, as I like to say, the continual exposure to heavy metals and chemicals, which we're all being exposed to, can lead to what I call a feeding frenzy in the bacteria environment in the gut, leading towards an overgrowth of things like yeast, as well as Clostridia and other bacteria for that matter. We have to appreciate the role of certain foods, such as obviously simple sugars, as being a feeding source for yeast like Candida, but some foods can actually contain yeasts, such as coffee, food additives, dried fruits, and then contaminated drugs and supplements. I was once told by a supplement representative for a top supplement company that they have to turn away 25% all the raw materials that they receive because those raw materials are contaminated with yeasts and mold. Think about that. Think about all of the companies that are not doing the testing for that. So do your supplements contain yeast and fungi? Who knows? Environmental mold exposures, this is an ever-increasing problem. Water-damaged buildings, the work that's been elucidated by Dr. Richie Shoemaker and those in that camp, and certainly contribute to the overwhelming burden that we're dealing with. So this is a graphic that I call the yeast fungal matrix. So it's not just about food anymore. When somebody 10 years ago was talking about candida or yeast, the only thing that we were thinking about was sugar intake. And yes, that certainly can be a component, no question about it, but there's a lot more going on. As we begin to investigate, yeast and fungal imbalances are associated with a number of different problems. In previous webinars, I've reported on how, according to the scientific literature, yeast and yeast metabolites like acetaldehyde are directly etiological with brain and neurotransmitter imbalances. I've shown literature that showed the relationships between acetaldehyde, candidiasis, and the altercations to histamine, serotonin, and dopamine, which these neurotransmitters being imbalanced can lead to problems like OCD, ADD, insomnia, depression, anxiety, etc. We have to appreciate what the literature says about the ability for yeast and fungi to proliferate in the presence of toxic metals and chemicals, as well as for yeasts and fungi to live or reside in these pathogenic biofilms, which make any kind of antifungal protocol that you're trying to use and do that much more difficult. Because unless you're breaking down biofilms or addressing the biofilms at the same time, you might not actually get the resolution of the symptoms that you want. As I mentioned before, oxalates and yeast go hand in hand, and this is something we're going to look at here today and why the O test is one of the best tests to use to be able to track yeast and oxalates over time. Oxalates, which we're going to look at, can form calcium deposits by binding with the calcium ion in the body, and this can lead to all kinds of problems such as joint and connective tissue pain. Oxalates are also a main component of the toxic chemical glyphosate, and so the the overwhelming exposure of that chemical can lead to high levels of oxalates and the problems associated. So it's not just about dietary sugars anymore. We have to appreciate all of these different things. This is a sample result of the Great Plains Organic Acids Test section on the yeast and fungal markers. So as you see, there's 9 different yeast and fungal markers. So Great Plains has really gone out of the way to provide their practitioners with as many of the most relevant markers for yeast and fungi as possible, because they too are aware of the problems of yeast and we want to be able to find them. In my experience, organic acids testing is just more complete, and you're much more likely to get positive yeast markers showing up than you would on stool testing. Even some of the best stool testing in the labs that we use don't always identify yeast markers in the stool, but oat testing is much more consistent from my experience. So as you can see here, this is obviously a problem when you have 6 yeast markers, yeast metabolites that are showing up. This suggests a rather lengthy discussion about what may be going on in this person's body. So antifungals, they're not enough. The reality of the situation is, yeah, they're absolutely important as part of a protocol, but they're not enough. And that's because most antifungals just simply don't address pathogenic biofilms. And I'm not just talking about natural antifungals like golden seal or berberine or olive leaf. Those are great. But even your pharmaceuticals like diflucan, they don't necessarily address the pathogenic biofilms that are holding the yeast together in colonies. So we have to get more creative in our protocols of how to really address all of the different pieces of the puzzle. Antifungals, again, they're great, but they don't necessarily address the underlying toxicity like mercury that could be driving the yeast imbalance in the first place. Antifungals, they're great, but they don't necessarily address the die-off-Herxheimer reactions that are induced when you start using an antifungal protocol. So we have to cover all the bases. This is a study done in 2001, just talking about the different effects on the architecture, for example, of biofilms from candidiasis, Candida albicans. So we have to appreciate that these biofilms can become very virulent and make whatever antifungal treatments that we're using much more difficult to address. So in terms of utilizing biofilm agents, proteolytic enzymes, you can't go wrong. Proteolytic enzymes, the strongest ones, and I've used a lot for the purpose of trying to break biofilm, lumbrokinase, while very expensive, from my experience is probably the single best enzyme to use. It's not the cheapest though, in order to break pathogenic biofilm. Serrapeptase, that has its role, and then some products, Claire Interphase and Interphase Plus, are very good. There's a product on the market called Candex and other similar products which contain glucoamylase, which is a specific enzyme. That product is also very good. And there's actually a couple of herbal products which are reported to act on biofilm, such as the biobotanical biocidin product as well as the herbal tea infusion Cistus incinus. So antifungals, so obviously, we can choose them. We have to look at which ones are probably most effective. Not everyone's going to respond the same way, but from my experience, there's about 4 or 5 that are just kind of the repeat good users that you're going to look at in protocols. Berberine, olive leaf extract, grapefruit seed extract or GSE, oregano oil, and then there's another one called ozonated olive oil, and there's a product I've been using lately called Rhizol Gamma, and I'm seeing some pretty good results with that. There's other forms of ozonated olive oil, but basically ozone is 3 atoms of oxygen, and it's yeast and fungi are very, very reactive to ozone. Okay, let's talk about oxalates because they're directly related here. So oxalates are also known as oxalic acid. The question I want to ask everybody is, why are they so important? And why do they keep showing up over and over again? Well, here's the reality. There's a lot of different foods that contain oxalic acid in them. Some foods contain very high amounts. I've listed a few of them here: spinach, apples, chocolate, tea, nuts, and certain green leafy vegetables. Not every one. So there's actually a much longer list than this. So they're actually found in a variety of different common foods that are so-called healthy. But they're also produced in the Krebs cycle, via the Krebs cycle of energy production. And that's actually the last turn of the Krebs cycle. We don't have time today to get into it, but on the organic acids test, you can actually look at the levels of oxaloacetate, which is how your body makes oxalic acid. But oxalates are degraded by intestinal bacteria, and there's a couple of microbes in the gut that have been shown to break it down: Oxalobacter formigenes and Bacillus subtilis. These are two of the main enzymes or probiotics in the gut that break these oxalates down. So it suggests that when oxalates are high, that is a marker for GI dysbiosis or bacterial imbalance. It's a potential marker there. We have to appreciate again that glyphosate, which is the active chemical found in the Monsanto Roundup product, actually contains oxalic acid. So sometimes if you're seeing elevations in these oxalate metabolites, it could be a result of that. So you're seeing here the Great Plains O test markers 19, 20, and 21 are all these different oxalate metabolites. In some people, when you do an oxalate elimination diet, it can actually be the missing link to unresolved inflammation and arthritis and pain. I've had that reported on many different occasions over the years, that suddenly their arthritic pain that they've been experiencing is just gone when they do an oxalate elimination diet. However, in some people, it can create adverse symptoms that is being referred to as, quote, oxalate dumping. There's not really enough known about the actual metabolic effects of oxalates in the tissues, but we suspect that it's happening. And as I mentioned, we're having to look at elevated oxalate levels and oxalate building up as being a reflection of dysbiosis. This was a study done very recently showing the association between high plasma and urinary oxalates in the autism spectrum disorder population. So again, one of the main components that you're seeing in that population is dysbiosis in varying degrees, and oxalates are part of that picture. So what about some supplements for the reduction of oxalates? I want to talk about this. This is some free takeaway information. So let's talk about the controversy about bile acids. So this is a study done in 2003 showing that the natural conjugated bile acid replacement therapy reduced the total fecal fat excretion from 119 to 79, as well as urinary oxalate excretion from 87 to 64. Now, this is another study done way back in 1976 that actually went a little bit further and found that that deoxycholate, which is the primary bile acid, significantly increased the absorption of oxalate in the intestines, whereas taurocolate, which is a taurine-based bile salt, did not. It had the opposite effect. So that's very interesting, and that means that if you're going to use bile acids, which, bile acids are not only useful for digestion of fats and fat-soluble vitamins, but they're a degreaser, they're a detoxifier, they help to break stuff down, and that includes oxalic acid. So if you're seeing the use of ox bile, consider the use of a taurine-based ox bile product called TUDCA, TUDCA. There's a lot of actual therapeutic effects of TUDCA that extend beyond its use here, but I want to say that this is something I would definitely consider instead of just the standard ox bile. Probing the mechanisms of Bacillus subtilis. So again, as I mentioned, this is a probiotic. You could get Bacillus subtilis in a variety of probiotics today, such as the Megaspore Biotic contains Bacillus subtilis in it. This is just evidence showing the bacterial effects on oxalate metabolism. Vitamin B6 deficiency increases oxalates, and we have to appreciate that oxalate stone formation is what causes kidney stones in most cases. So vitamin B6 deficiency that may be underlying that could actually be one of these components. These are a couple of really old but good studies. This one done from 2005 showing that vitamin B6 supplementation actually lowers urinary oxalates long term. Let's get into clostridial markers here next. So clostridial markers on the organic acids test. Again, this is the Great Plains test. So Clostridium is a gram-positive anaerobic bacteria. And it's often caused by antibiotic use, but not always, because you can have other people that have high levels of these metabolites, especially the cresol, that don't take antibiotics, at least not knowingly. But there's several species of Clostridial metabolites that can show up on the O test, such as the Clostridial stricklandii, the sporogenes, the botulism form, the tetanus form. And what's interesting and important to know is that Clostridia produces very volatile bacterial toxins, which are extremely toxic. And these particular metabolites can cause all kinds of inflammatory responses, calling on the autonomic nervous system as well as the immune system. And this can cause secondary problems and symptoms. Like other anaerobic bacteria, Clostridia can also produce ammonia in the gut. Ammonia is neurotoxic, and it can lead to problems such as hyperammonemia. There can be symptoms associated with Clostridia, such as diarrhea, bloody stools, bloating, but sometimes there's no symptoms at all, so you don't always know. Therefore, the organic acids test is a valid way of getting an assessment here. All right, so we've seen this slide before in previous webinars, and I want to show it again because it is very significant. This is a study done in 1987 that showed the mechanism-based inactivation of the enzyme dopamine beta hydroxylase by P-cresol, which is a Clostridium difficile metabolite. So DBH is the enzyme that converts the neurotransmitter dopamine into norepinephrine. Now, why is this potentially relevant and valid? Well, the organic acids test, again, as I mentioned, is a very useful test because it can reveal hidden things in physiology. And it can reveal when brain neurochemical imbalances are being caused by bacterial imbalances. I want to repeat that again. The organic acids test is a very valid and important test for helping to identify that brain neurotransmitter imbalances can be caused by bacterial imbalances. And so what is possible when you see elevations in the Clostridium markers on organic acids test, such as this example, you have to also look at what's going on between the relationship between dopamine and norepinephrine. Dopamine gets converted into norepinephrine. DBH is the enzyme that does it. The metabolite P-cresol, which is a metabolite produced by Clostridium difficile, inhibits that enzymatic conversion. That's important information because if you've got high dopamine, you've got problems. You've got increased sympathetic nervous system function. You've got symptoms possibly related to anxiety, OCD, things that increase cortisol and sympathetic output. So therapeutic protocols for Clostridia, we have to use intensive probiotic therapy. We want to look at botanicals such as the biocidin and other antimicrobials like berberine and grapeseed extract, which can help us to keep Clostridia in check. But we also want to be considerate of the use of intestinal binding agents because, again, Clostridia can produce some very volatile and toxic endotoxins, bacterial end products. So modified citrus pectin is a great kind of fiber. Various kinds of clays are excellent. Activated charcoal can be used intermittently. So if you're working with people that have chronic dysbiosis, you definitely can use the O test as a great way to evaluating that as well as the effect of that dysbiosis on their brain and nervous system. Okay, so neurotransmitter metabolites. I want to look at this section of the organic acids test because it's very, very valuable. There's a lot going on here. And the more tests that you begin to run, the more you start to see the moving picture of how the body fits together like a jigsaw puzzle. And this section of the O test is phenomenal. So we're looking here at marker number 33. This is the HVA. HVA is the primary dopamine metabolite. So dopamine, of course, being the primary catecholamine neurotransmitter. Dopamine, as we saw, gets converted into norepinephrine via that enzyme DBH, which we just looked at, and VMA is the metabolite of both norepinephrine and epinephrine. So then the ratio is basically essentially the relationship between dopamine and norepinephrine. How well it's being converted or how well it's being broken down or maybe it's not being converted well in some cases. We're going to look at a case study example of that. And then we have the tryptophan metabolites on the organic acids test. So this is 5-hydroxyindole acetate, marker number 36. This is the major serotonin metabolite. And then we have quinolinic acid, otherwise known as quinolinate, marker number 37. And this is a major tryptophan metabolite. It's a potential neurotoxin. The body will preferentially funnel more tryptophan towards making quinolinic acid than serotonin when there's more inflammation that's being activated. And so when we see high quinolinate, this could be a big signal. Marker number 38 is known as kynurenine or kynurenic acid, and this is related to marker number 37 above. It's part of that same pathway. And when we see elevations in the kynurenine, such as we do here in this example, this is a major indicator of a vitamin B6 deficiency. So vitamin B6, of course, playing a key role in how the brain functions. And so we see the quinolinate to 5-HIA ratio, which again is similar to the other ratio we were looking at, it's telling us how much of the tryptophan is going down this inflammatory pathway versus how much is going down the pathway to make serotonin. So you can see how a lot of different configurations can arise depending on the client, and how this section can actually be very important when you're looking at other sections of the test. So, neurotransmitter balancing protocols. 3 things I want to tell you about that. Number 1, remember this. Neurotransmitter imbalances are frequently caused by inflammation and or infections and microbial imbalances. Number 2, identifying and correcting microbial imbalances or inflammation often normalizes the neurotransmitter activities. Number 3, sometimes you need to support neurotransmitter synthesis regardless, but not always. So if you see somebody that has high dopamine and low norepinephrine metabolites, what are you going to do? Well, you need to look at the O test as a source of evidence for that. And if you learn how to interpret the test correctly and looking at how to implement all of the different sections of the test together, you'll start to see the moving picture. Okay, let's take a look at a case study dissection. This is a female age 48, and she has symptoms of anxiety, sleep issues. She's got intermittent skin rashes that are appearing on her face. She's got a history of itching, and she was taking an antihistamine drug for a while because it was helping those symptoms as well as evidently her sleep symptoms. She does have a history of mercury toxicity with 6 to 8 mercury amalgam fillings in her mouth. And so we have to appreciate that heavy metals in the environment, especially mercury, are very capable of producing microbial imbalances, especially related to yeast and fungi. So we suspect that these symptoms are at least enough reason to warrant to look at an organic acids test. So here's her results. So we see that the arabinose marker number 7, which is the main marker that you're going to see showing up over and over again with candida, is pretty elevated here at 114. You see the lab's cutoff is less than 29, so she's way up there. And we also see that her carboxycitric marker number 8 is also elevated. That's almost 3 times or twice above the lab's limit, so that's at 60. And we see that her oxalate levels are pretty elevated as well at 200. Next page here, looking here at her 4-hydroxyphenyl acetate, marker number 15. And this is a major marker of Clostridia. A variety of different Clostridial species can produce this. She's elevated at 36. The cutoff is 19 by the lab. Doesn't stop there. We get to her neurotransmitter section. Now check out her marker number 33, her HVA. That is extremely elevated. Look at the lab's range of 0.8 to 3.6. She's at 21. That's off the chart, literally by a long shot. And we also see that her marker number 35 is elevated at 8.5. So what does that suggest to you? Remember when we looked at the slide about how Clostridia can inhibit DBH, dopamine beta hydroxylase? That's pretty good evidence that that may be happening in this case. And she's symptomatic. She has symptoms of anxiety, which is certainly what can happen with high levels of dopamine. Well, she's certainly breaking down a lot of it. All right, so this was a protocol that was constructed. So first of all, we want to refine the diet, remove simple sugars, and reduce high oxalate foods. So we want to go gradually. We don't want to just push the low oxalate diet from the gate because it can, as I mentioned, sometimes people can be very reactive to that. They can get quote-unquote oxalate dumping symptoms. And so we want to be careful. She's going to slowly, gradually implement the dietary changes over a few weeks. Supplementation-wise, we're going to look at yeast oxalate balance. So we use the product Candicid Forte because it's very good. It's very comprehensive. We're going to run this protocol for about a month. And we're also adding in the Clear Interface Plus. This is a therapeutic enzyme product that's going to address those biofilms. So it's going to help to contain some of the glucoamylase as well as low dose of EDTA to address the biofilm in the gut. We're going to also use some probiotics. We can use the Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a kind of a yeast probiotic that keeps candida and other yeasts in check. And we're going to alternate using that along with 2 other probiotics, the Garden of Life Women's Probiotic, which is a whole food probiotic, with another probiotic called Megaspore, which contains Bacillus subtilis and other probiotics in it. So we're going to rotate those every 3 days or so. And we're going to also add in a little bit of vitamin B6, P5P. Why? Because it's anxiolytic. P5P has an ability to reduce anxiety, but it also, as you remember the study, showing that vitamin B6 also can reduce oxalate over time. And we're using the bile salt TUDCA, 500 to 1,000 milligrams daily. That's the taurine-based bile salt that's going to help to scrub her intestines with that good quality bile acid. Clostridia support, we're going to be using a low dose of the Biobotanicals Biocidin product, 2 to 3 drops 3 times daily. It's very strong, and so any kind of a die-off, we're going to use a binder in the intestines. We're going to be using modified citrus pectin fiber, 800 milligrams twice daily. There's a lot of really good research on the physiological effects of citrus pectin on its ability to bind up lipopolysaccharides and other endotoxins that are being produced by anaerobic bacteria in the gut. So this is good to help prevent die-off reactions, which could either be die-off from the yeast or from the Clostridia or other anaerobic bacteria that we just don't even know about yet. And so probiotics, part of that Clostridial protocol, that's going to be included with the exact same probiotics that was listed above. And then we're going to just provide some basic symptomatic anxiety support. Niacinamide, 1,500 milligrams a day. There's an emerging body of research that shows that niacinamide, vitamin B3, has an ability to reduce dopamine in the prefrontal cortex. You look at the old work of Dr. Abram Hoffer back in the 1960s, these niacin flushes that schizophrenics were doing, they weren't even flushing with mega doses of niacin, yet in many cases their symptoms were just disappearing. And it's because vitamin B3 at therapeutic doses has an ability to attenuate the dopamine in the prefrontal cortex. We're going to also add in some magnesium glycinate, which is a nice form of magnesium. I like glycine in general because it has an anxiolytic effect. Glycine is an inhibitory neurotransmitter that binds to the NMDA receptor, the glutamate N-methyl D-aspartic acid receptor. So she responded very well to this protocol. So I'm going to show you here. Let's do the follow-up in 2 months. So symptom-wise, her responses were as follows. The oxalate-containing foods she identified produced numerous histamine-related itching triggers, and that was when she would come off the oxalate foods, she would reintroduce them again, and she would start realizing how those foods were actually affecting her. She didn't know that before. So overall, the oxalate reduction diet has been very beneficial for her. She's reporting that her overall skin reactions have been significantly reduced, so the itching is less, the rash on the face is less, and her sleep is much improved, which is excellent. We didn't really even address it that much. Anxiety, much improved also. So that's great. Let's take a look at some of the results here. This is a follow-up organic acids test done about 2 months later or so. So marker number 70, the arabinose, that's our major yeast marker. That's down from 114 to 70. Now it's still elevated, but it's a lot improved from where it was before. And we see marker number 8, which was previously 60, has completely normalized to 4.6. So that's excellent. We know we're on the right track. Her symptoms are corresponding with the clinical results of the test. Marker number 21, the oxalic acid level, that's down significantly from 200 down to 116. That's outstanding progress. She's doing well with the diet, and the yeast reduction protocol is also helping to reduce the oxalates. So as you see the moving picture of the organic acids test over time, it really becomes clear that the yeast and the oxalate markers move together. Let's take a look at the clostridial markers section. So that's normalized. So previously, that marker number 15, the 4-hydroxyphenylacetate, that clostridial marker was as high as 36. It's now cut in half to 18. That's excellent. That's normalized. And at the same time, we see marker number 33 and 35. Those have improved significantly. So remember that her HVA, marker number 33, was previously at 21. It's now down to 3.6. So she's making that conversion, and that is reflected in the improved HVA to VMA ratio, marker number 35. That's down from 8.5 to 2. We didn't address her neurotransmitters really that much. Yeah, we added a little B6, glycine, and B3, but we didn't add serotonin. We didn't really address that. It was all bacterial. And so her anxiety improved, her sleep improved. It was bacterial balance that was affecting her brain. We pretty much demonstrated that with this test. And so Really, really, really beneficial. So we're not done yet with her. We have some follow-up work to do. We want to continuously monitor her excretion of toxic metals. Like to use a hair analysis with that is a good test. And that's just simply because we know that toxic chemicals and heavy metals will contribute continuously to microbial imbalances that we're seeing. We're going to add some collagen protein to help remodel and rebuild her gut lining. We're going to continue with probiotics as a therapeutic regimen. And I'd like to add in the Restore Lignite product because it's been shown in some initial studies to help tighten the junctions, those loose junctions in the gut. So overall, we did exactly what we wanted to do. And this is a good case study example. I wanted to show you how the organic acids test can provide a moving picture understanding of your client. And it can show you how bacterial imbalances can cause brain neurochemical imbalances. And that's evidenced by what we looked at today, the protocol we did, and it all seemed to improve significantly when we addressed the gut. Helping clients to achieve a higher level of health is rewarding. Continuing to develop your clinical skill set greatly helps that process. Why are you here today? Perhaps you're looking for the most current approaches that will help your clients get better. Maybe you're looking to make more money doing what you love to do, and that is helping people to get healthy. The reality is that clinical practice is becoming more challenging because of the complexity of 21st century health issues. We are asking you to step up to the plate and enable your maximum clinical potential to be realized. And that is why I've created Mastering Functional Lab Test Analysis. Mastering Functional Lab Test Analysis is a premier practitioner training course that teaches you the in-depth clinical investigative skills necessary to tackle today's challenging concerns. With this course, you can expect better results with your clients, faster results with your clients. You'll learn new and cutting-edge protocols, and you'll even develop deeper knowledge and new clinical skills so that you can have greater confidence in addition to the in-depth course material that you get in the course. You also receive some extra bonuses, and this includes the Metabolic Healing VIP Facebook practitioner forum so that you can interact with all of the other metabolic healing practitioners who have taken our courses. You also receive access to the Direct Healthcare Wholesale Lab Test account so that you can have great functional lab testing ordered for your clients and handled all by Direct Healthcare. This is a great, great service. You'll also receive the bi-monthly support call webinars, and this includes over 2 years of archived video content. We do new videos every other week, and you have access to all of this so that you can learn about case studies, new protocols, dissection of certain biochemical pathways, and different lab tests. You also receive access to the Organic Acids Interpretive Multimedia Reference Guide, which is a great way to learn about how to utilize organic acids in your practice. This comes with additional 50 minutes of video content that helps to really elucidate the biochemistry and make organic acids much simpler. Mastering Functional Lab Test Analysis is an 11-hour training course that contains absolutely cutting-edge content, plus you receive 4 additional hours of question and answer content. Mastering Functional Lab Test Analysis is my 4th clinical training program that I've created in my career, and during this time, I've received a number of great testimonials from some of the top functional medicine practitioners in my industry. Mastering Functional Lab Test Analysis contains great content. Let's take a deeper look inside. So you're going to learn how to explore these key concepts, and this is one of the things that I've put into the course that makes it very accessible to you. There are essentially 11 different tracks in this course. We look at the CBS genetic variations, fluid electrolyte balance. We even have a track on mold and biotoxins, the appropriate testing and therapeutic protocols. We look at urinary, sex, and adrenal hormones, as well as assessment of the sympathetic nervous system. We look at thyroid, autoimmune thyroid, as well as the relationship to various viruses. We cover vitamin B6, the testing, implications, and protocols, as well as neurotransmitter balance, microbial balance and gastrointestinal function, as well as redox and detoxification, ammonia and urea cycle function, and blood sugar handling metabolism. In addition to the course, you also receive this great clinical toolkit. As I mentioned before, the Metabolic Healing VIP Facebook forum is a great way to interact with the hundreds of other metabolic healing practitioners in our network. You also receive the Urinary Organic Acids Test Interpretive Multimedia Reference Guide. This excellent tool is a great way for you to learn about how to begin analyzing and interpreting urinary organic acids testing. You receive exclusive access to the Direct Healthcare Reseller Lab Test account so that you can have ordered for you or your patients and clients the most relevant functional lab testing today. You also receive the Metabolic Healing bi-monthly support webinars, which have all been archived over the past 2 years. Let's take a closer look at that Direct Healthcare Access reseller testing account. So it's really tremendous. I've partnered with an affiliate lab in the Chicago area known as Direct Healthcare, and they essentially will order the tests on your behalf or your client's behalf. They will order the test and you buy the test from the lab, and then you resell these tests to your client or patients at your own specified retail price. So this is a tremendous way for you to have access to the best kinds of functional tests today, and this includes urine, blood, stool testing, saliva testing, and many more kinds of great tests. The Urinary Organic Acids Interpretive Multimedia Reference Guide has recently been added, and this is a 20-page multimedia interpretive guide that contains over 50 minutes of additional video content links in the guide to help you navigate through the complexity of urinary organic acids test. I teach you how to elucidate and understand 76 urinary organic acid markers, what they mean, and what the potential protocols are for each marker and section. This is a great guide that will teach you how to get going in your practice with the use of this great organic acids test. This course is eligible for continuing education credits through the CHEK Institute as well as through the Functional Diagnostic Nutrition course. So if you're a CHEK practitioner or an FDN practitioner, you receive continuing education credits for this course. So let's recap. 14 plus hours of cutting edge content. Mastering Functional Lab Test Analysis also includes the bi-monthly support call webinars, the archive. You receive the continuing education units if you're a CHEK and FDN practitioner. You receive exclusive access to the Metabolic Healing VIP Practitioner Facebook Forum, the Organic Acids Test Multimedia Reference Guide, the PDF slides of the entire course. If you complete successfully all of the tests in the course, you receive a certificate of completion, and you also receive the Direct Healthcare Resellers Lab Test account. This course is viewable to be streamed on any device, whatever you're working with, whether that's a desktop, a tablet, or a phone even. And this is a great way to be able to access the material in any way you need. So please help us in carrying out our mission of training and networking with the top clinicians in the world. And we do what we do because we want to include you in our network of the top practitioners, the top clinicians, so that we can help to revolutionize healthcare, so that we can help more people who really need it. We all know that the standard of care in healthcare today is severely lacking and that there's better solutions and options available. And I'd love it if you became part of this healthcare revolution that's taking place. So, Mastering Functional Lab Test Analysis, it's a great course. I know you'll agree. We're having a special today and today only on this webinar. Get $300 off of this course until the end of this live broadcast. And that means you get instant access to the course and all the materials contained in it for $897 out the door. That's $300 off. The course normally retails for $1197. So until the end of this live broadcast, get the course now, and you'll definitely love it. And you could start it whenever you want. So please go ahead and click the link right now to receive exclusive access. And when you click that link, go to the checkout box at the bottom, and that will take you to the place to enter in the coupon code. That coupon code to get that $300 discount, please add this in, OAT300. That is OAT300. That's the coupon code to get $300 off of this course right now. All right, so if you click the link, this is what it's going to take you to is the landing page to the course. And you scroll down, you can go through all the different sections in it. Get to the very bottom of the landing page and you get instant access now for $11.97. Click register now. And as soon as you click register now, that's going to take you right to the cart. There you see the course in your cart. You're going to add in the coupon code, which is OAT300. Apply coupon. That's going to give you the $300 discount. There it is, you see it. And then all you have to do is click proceed to checkout. That's going to take you to the checkout page. Now enter in your name, email address so that you can be entered into the course. And then payment is as simple as either using PayPal or click credit card, and then click the terms and conditions button and then place order. It's as simple as that. You're good to go. So join us in helping to advance clinical practice. As we all know, we all want to do better in this world. We all want to help people really to get to a higher level of health, and we want to use our evidence-based clinical nutritional skills to do that. We have an evolving and continually growing list of practitioners who have taken metabolic healing training courses, and we would love for you to become part of that list. So as you make your decision today about doing this great course, I hope you consider the bigger goal and mission that we're all working towards. All right, so we're going to do this Q&A right now. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the chat box. You can also email the question to labs@metabolichealing.com. We're going to field as many of these as we can. We've got a number already that are showing up. We're also going to do the iPad giveaway. Now here's how this works. So in order to be eligible to win this iPad, you have to buy the course. And as soon as you buy the course, you're going to be entered into a grab bag, essentially, where we're just going to pull a name out of a hat at the very end of this webinar Q&A here at the end of this. So that's how we're going to do it. Let's get right into this. So 15 minutes, get the Mastering Functional Lab Test Analysis course right now for $897. That's $300 off of the retail price. Simply click the link and enter in the coupon code OAT300. That is OAT300 at the checkout. All right, so first question is from Steven. Does the OAT test interpretive guide work for the Genova OAT test or for the Great Plains OAT test? Thanks for asking the question. The answer to the question is both. And that's because I've looked at, there's a lot of overlap, first of all, between the organic acids on the Great Plains and then on Genova. They're not identical, however. Overall, the Great Plains organic acids test has many more analytes than does the Genova test, but there's a few analytes on the Genova test that is not included in the Great Plains, at least right now, such as the FIGLU and the glucarate level. But I think just about all of the other ones are going to be on the Genova test. So basically, it's not specific to any one lab, but it's an amalgamation of all of the different organic acids found on both of those two main tests. Okay, next question is from Marlene, and she says, I'm working with a 3-year-old female client with persistent skin rashes, irritability, and insomnia. Do you have any advice on what I should do? Well, clearly, as you learned from this webinar today, Marlene, that the organic acids test is a potentially valuable test to choose to start with in terms of investigating what may be going on. Obviously, the issue of skin rashes and irritability and even insomnia could be related to neurotransmitter imbalances, gastrointestinal imbalances, yeast, clearly. So I hope today's webinar was helpful for you. And so you can always utilize the skills that you get in the webinars that we do, as well as in the courses that we provide and the educational materials contained therein, so that you can start working with people as well as even kids for that matter. And that is one of the reasons the organic acids test is such a powerful test with kids, is that it can shed light on a lot of these different markers that can really help you understand what the symptoms really represent clinically. All right, so just a little bit more than 12 and a half minutes to go here. So we're running a sale for the Mastering Functional Lab Test Analysis course, and that course is $897 through the end of this broadcast. That's $300 off the price. Click the link, use the coupon code at checkout OAT300, OAT300 to get the discount. Next question is from Dennis. The course looks great. Can I begin the course whenever I want, or is there a time limit? So we get these questions quite a bit with every webinar we do, and the simple answer to the question is that it's a video course. You can start it today. You can start it tomorrow. You can start it next week, next month, next year. You could start it at any point. Now, we like our practitioners to start doing the course material as soon as they get it so that they can start implementing it into their practice as soon as they can. But I also understand that you may have other commitments and other things that you're doing in your life that may prevent you from being able to start things immediately. But the good news is you can do this course and all metabolic healing courses at your discretion. So it's a video course and you get lifetime access to it. So you can do the course as many times as you want. And actually, because I do cover so much material, it's very helpful for clinicians. I've had people tell me that they got so much out of doing the course a second time or going to watch another few different videos and modules from the course a second time, a third time, because there are little important pieces of information that they just didn't get on the first pass. So it's a great thing about a video course is you can just do it however long it takes you to do it. Just do it and go through it as many times as you want. Okay, so just a little less than 11 minutes to go here. This is a great course, and it's going to help to really transform a lot of things about your practice. One of the reasons that I created this course was to synthesize a lot of different ideas that are coming into the clinical field in the 21st century. It's very current. The course is very updated. There's a lot of different concepts that overlap, and I wanted to try to as a sort of a departure from how I've created courses in the past. The last few courses I've created were extremely content specific to one particular problem. Like, for example, a blood sugar diabetes course was all about blood sugar and diabetes. But this course contains a lot of different material. There's a lot of different conditions and different tests and different things that come up in practice repeatedly that are all very much related, and so it helps to cover a lot of different bases, and that's why I did this one. So you get the opportunity to get it now for $8.97 out the door. Next question is from Sylvia. What is the cost to run the O-test through DHA, and how much do you bill your clients for consulting? So currently the organic acids test, you can basically buy that test. So again, DHA, they order the test for you. They have their ordering docs that order it, and all you're basically doing is you're basically like a business affiliate, I guess is the word, or a business reseller or intermediate. You're basically buying the pre-ordered test from DHA and you're selling it back to your client at whatever cost you specify. So it costs you right now at this webinar about $275 to run that test, and you can resell that for $300, $325, whatever, just to do it. And then your client gets the test kit shipped to them, and they complete the sample, and then they just send it right into the lab, and then the results get uploaded to your portal through DHA Labs. That's how that whole system works. It's a really excellent setup and relationship that we have with DHA. I've worked with DHA to customize testing panels for all of our metabolic healing practitioners. That includes the most cutting-edge stool testing, a number of different blood chemistry markers and blood chemistry panels, as well as other tests like the urinary Dutch section adrenal hormone test, which you learn about in the course. So this is a great course, provides great resources and information to you to really help get it down. The second part of your question, Sylvia, was how much do you bill your clients for consulting? Well, we have different packages, and we work depending on the situation. We have a package that costs $600, which includes 3 consults, 2 or 3 consults plus some email time. But it really depends. So like somebody wants to just do a 1-hour consult for the first time, we charge anywhere between $250 and $350 for a one-time only consult. So we have a variety of different inquiries we receive regarding consulting. So it's really up to the clinician to figure that out for themselves. But the reality is that this course for $897 will basically pay for itself in 1, 2, maybe 3 clients at the most. So all the material paid for itself, plus you're making money on the lab tests and in whatever supplements that you wind up selling. So it's just an obvious no-brainer. So that's how it works. It's a good system and a good setup. We got about 7 minutes to go here. So this is your chance to get this Mastering Functional Lab Test Analysis course right now for $897 to become part of the metabolic healing community of practitioners. We have over 350 practitioners who have taken metabolic healing courses to date, and that list is going to continue to grow as the need and demand is going to continue to grow for top clinicians to be able to tackle real world problems and having real world solutions for them. Question is from Susan. What are the markers on the O test to identify a vitamin B6 deficiency? All right, so we actually have an entire section in the course devoted to vitamin B6. And this is including a number of different tests that you can look at, organic acid as well as other tests like blood tests. And we also go into the importance of vitamin B6 in various biochemical pathways. So, I show how B6 plays an integral role as a cofactor in amino acid metabolism and brain neurotransmitter fatty acid synthesis, and with specifically how to utilize it with neurotransmitter protocols for that matter. So in answer to your specific question about organic acids testing in B6, the answer to your question is, and I'll give this away, this is free info, you'll get a little bit of this in the course, but there's a ton more in the course on B6, is kynurenic acid and xanthuronate, or kynurenine and xanthuronate. So those are the two most sensitive markers for vitamin B6 deficiency. If either of those markers are elevated on the O test, definitely thinking about vitamin B6. Kynurenine and xanthuronate are actually from the same, originate from the same pathway, the kynurenine pathway. So there's that. But again, there's other tests you can look at, like the pyroluria test, for example, is another potential B6 deficiency indicator test. You learn about that in the course, as well as the blood levels of the metabolic enzymes that reflect B6. So we got a little bit more than 5 minutes to go here. I'm not going to get all of these questions, but I'm going to try to get as many as I can. So get the course now. We've just got about 5 more minutes for this sale. And $897 is a great price. Course pays for itself once you start working with your clients and implementing the tests and the materials and all that. OAT300 is the coupon code. Do a checkout, OAT300. Question is from Rich. I noticed that you cover mold testing and protocols in the course. This seems very important. Can you talk about that and discuss that? Okay, so I actually had one of the top mold certified physicians come and do a 45-minute interview, and that's in the course. And this is with Dr. Sandeep Gupta. He's a Ritchie Shoemaker certified mold doctor. And even before he did the interview, I knew I was going to have a track on mold. I do a case study, actually do a couple case studies, and one that's very extensive, including the at-home Mycometrics ERMI test, the protocols that were devised, all of the different elaborate components to that protocol, and the success that was generated when we realized that the problem was all about mold in that particular client. That was a really tremendous case. So we're going to go into the testing in there. So we're going to look at the TGF beta 1 and the C4A, C3A, the MSH, which is the hormone in the brain that gets dysregulated with mold biotoxins. And so we even go into some of the genetic stuff, touch on Marcons a little bit, which is the deep sinus infection. So it's contained in the course, and it's really good. It's really good. It's really cutting edge, and it's really important information on mold, because what Shoemaker and others has basically elucidated on are different mechanisms of inflammation and how the immune system responds to various antigens. And so there's actually a lot of crossover between what that research has uncovered and other conditions like autoimmunity. And so that is one of the kind of what I was talking about earlier about kind of weaving in and out of different themes, and how, you don't necessarily think the relationship between autoimmune disease, viruses, and mold are related. But once you actually see and understand the mechanisms of immune dysfunction and immune responses, it starts to make more sense, because we're looking at the same thing. We're looking at different pathways of the immune system. So yeah, it's big. The mold stuff is big time. It's huge. It's important, and it is one of the main causes of so many problems today. Water damage buildings and the toxicity that can induce in the human body. So we got just a little bit more than 2 minutes to go. We're going to do the raffle for the iPad here, but you have to buy the course in order to be entered into it. And let's see if we can get into more of these questions here. Anthony, do you teach other aspects of organic acids testing in your course? Yes, correct, we do. And again, that oat test multimedia guide has recently been added. That contains 50 minutes of additional video content linked in that PDF. Plus, you get all the different charts inside of that, or I said tables basically, to each individual marker. So it teaches you what each marker does and what the potential causes of the marker being high or low are, and what the possible therapeutic um, uses for based on that. But there are other parts of the course devoted to the use of oat testing, and we cover that in the course. We look at ammonia, neurotransmitters, detoxification indicators. We look at a lot of the different sections, and then the guide is just a more icing on the cake because we cover everything in the guide. All right, so we got a minute and a half to go. Get the course now. Mastering Functional Lab Test Analysis, $897. Use the coupon code to get your $300 discount, OAT300. Okay, so let's go and do Patrice. I learn a lot from you. Thank you. If I sign up for your course, are there case studies in it? I learn best from case studies. Yes, definitely case studies. A whole assortment of different case studies on different topics, and it's going to be a great course. You're going to love it. But we also have over 2 years of archived metabolic healing support calls, and there are a plethora of additional case studies in there. So that's even more great content that you get when you sign up for this course. So again, the Metabolic Healing VIP Facebook forum, you can interact with all of our other practitioners, as well as the archived video content from our support calls. Less than a minute to go. Last chance to get this course at this great price of $897. Okay, so we're kind of running out of time. Let's see if we can get to one more question. Great dissection on the case study today. I learned a lot. My question is, are there specific protocols that I can learn about for neurotransmitter balancing? Is that in your course? Short answer is yes. We actually cover that, the pathways, the nutrient, the potential therapies, and how to really kind of look at the test from a more three-dimensional perspective. All right, so this has been a great call. So I'm just going to let the timer tick down here because I know there's at least going to be a few more sales coming through. And we're going to do the raffle here just in a moment. I'm going to handle one more question, and then let's do the iPad raffle. So Dave wants to know, are there other ways to use 5-HTP other than for depression? Yeah, that's an interesting question. Short answer is take the course, and you'll get a better understanding of the pathways leading to the production of serotonin. So if the 5-HIAA metabolite is low or high, you got to find out first why that's happening before even thinking about supplementation. All right, so let's do this raffle. So again, here's how it's working. Basically, anybody that has purchased the course, we've written your names down, and we're going to pull names out of a hat here as we do this. And so let's do that right now. Can we get a drum roll, please? And the winner of the iPad is Vincent Stellato, Stellato. Congratulations, Vincent. You have won a free iPad. I hope you love it, and I hope that you use it with your new course. Congratulations on all accounts. I'm very pleased. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here today. We'll contact you, Vince, so don't go away. We've got to get your contact info. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this webinar today. It's been great. I love doing these. I love sharing this information with everybody. And keep up the great work in clinical practice today. We know that the world needs it. We know you're doing great work. So keep that going. We'll talk to you again soon, everybody. This is Michael McAvoy signing out. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.